It's September 4th here in Seoul, and I'm Kim Dami. We begin with these stories making the headlines at this hour. Starting with memorial events commemorating a young teacher's death here in the country. Marking 49 days since the suicide of a teacher at an elementary school in Seoul, memorial events are taking place nationwide. Teachers are heading out to the streets instead of schools to demand enhanced teachers' rights. Washington is keeping Beijing in check. U.S. Commerce Secretary Gina Raimondo says the U.S. has, quote, sticks to use to counter China if necessary, from export controls to tariffs. Typhoon Saola wreaked havoc in southern China and Hong Kong over the weekend. And yet another one, Typhoon Haikui, is crawling closer to China after slamming Taiwan. It's been 49 days since the suicide of a young teacher at an elementary school in Seocho-gu, Seoul. Now, to mark this day, memorial events will be held throughout the country today, including at the National Assembly and education offices nationwide. This follows a demonstration held in Seoul on Saturday, in which 200,000 teachers gathered to call for the better protection of their rights. It also follows the deaths of 3 other teachers in South Korea in the past week. The Ministry of Education has asked teachers not to take leave to attend Monday's rally and said it's prepared to take disciplinary action if teachers take collective action. In Korean and Buddhist culture, a person's death is mourned for 49 days, as it's believed the deceased will move on to their afterlife after 7 weeks. President Yoon has invited ethnic Korean survivors of the Hiroshima atomic bomb to visit South Korea during the upcoming Chuseok holiday. The presidential official said Saturday that the leader had made the request, with the government officially extending the invitation to be part of the Korean Thanksgiving holiday celebrations and see the progress Korea has made over the years. This comes after Yoon met with the victims in May during the G7 summit in Hiroshima, where he first expressed his hope that they would visit their homeland. Their trip to Korea will likely be arranged by the recently launched Overseas Koreans Office. U.S. Commerce Secretary Gina Raimondo says her country has sticks to wield if Beijing triggers conflict. This also comes as Washington seeks to elevate diplomatic ties with Vietnam, a move widely seen as countering China's influence in the Indo-Pacific region. Shin Se-byuk reports.
U.S. Commerce Secretary Gina Raimondo said the U.S. has sticks that it can use to counter China if Beijing triggers conflict. In an interview with CNN on Sunday, Raimondo said there are plenty of tools, including export controls and tariffs, to use against China that Washington is ready and willing to use if necessary. The remarks followed Raimondo's visit to China last week to discuss U.S.-China commercial ties. She's the 4th senior U.S. official to visit China this year and the first Commerce Secretary to visit the country in 5 years. In another interview with NBC on the same day, she said Washington's export controls on China are about national security, not about gaining an economic advantage. Last year, the Biden administration announced export controls, banning Chinese companies from buying advanced semiconductors and chip-making equipment without a license. Raimondo, despite strained relations between the two sides, reiterated the importance of cultivating the $700 billion bilateral relationship and said Washington will continue to sell chips to Beijing, but not the most sophisticated ones that China wants for military purposes. Meanwhile, the U.S. is expected to elevate its diplomatic relations with Vietnam as President Joe Biden is set to travel to Hanoi on September 10th following the G20 summit in India. The visit comes as the Biden administration seeks to strengthen ties with Indo-Pacific countries.
As the United States looks to deepen our ties with the region, Vietnam is going to be a key partner. And so the deliverables that will be announced as part of this visit will reflect both the breadth and also the depth of that relationship.
And according to the Washington Post, Biden could sign a comprehensive strategic partnership with Vietnam. The CSP is Vietnam's highest diplomatic partnership and is 2 notches above the two countries' current comprehensive partnership. So far, Vietnam has only formed the CSPs with 4 countries: South Korea, China, India, and Russia. The motivation for such a diplomatic move can be seen as part of Washington's move to bolster economic and security ties with the Indo-Pacific countries while countering China. 신세벽, Arirang News.
North Korea said Sunday it successfully carried out a drill for a simulated tactical nuclear attack, which South Korea's military calls overstated and exaggerated. For more, we're joined by Brian Mars this morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
Can we see these as retaliatory actions against the major joint exercise between South Korea and the U.S. that ended last week?
Well, there's probably an element of tit for tat involved, but when you train your troops either in defensive or offensive maneuvers, you basically compel the other side to conduct exercises too. And this is one reason why the North Koreans are always so angry about Ulchi Freedom Shield and the other exercises that take place here. It's because they force North Korea to use up a lot of precious resources, oil in particular, which it might prefer to use elsewhere. But let's take a step back and look at the longer term picture. The only area of North Korean life that is functioning on an international level is the nuclear and ballistic sector. And that's because scientists have free rein to follow their own technological timetable. So I don't think we should read into every kind of missile activity some sort of dramatic statement about topical developments here in South Korea. I think to do that would be to trivialize this nuclear program into a succession of propaganda spectacles. And of course, it's much bigger than that.
That's a very good point. Now, we're talking about this simulated tactical nuclear attack that involved cruise missile launches, right? Then why is South Korea's military actually questioning what the North is describing as successful? I mean, based on what evidence?
Well, South Korea always tries to cast doubt on Pyongyang's claims to military achievement, but the North Koreans do seem to be withholding footage of one cruise missile, from which fact the South Koreans are, I think, quite reasonably inferring that it didn't meet expectations. So you've got a failure rate of 50%, not great. And even in the case of the other missile, there's room for doubt as to whether it actually hit its intended target. We can't be sure about how accurate it was. On the other hand, South Korea is acknowledging that this was indeed a cruise missile, as opposed to what happened about 2 weeks ago when the North Koreans said they fired a cruise missile and the South Koreans said, no, that was just a ship-to-ship missile. This time there could be no doubt it was a cruise missile. It was in the air for a significant amount of time. So however you look at it, this does seem to be at least a moderate step forward in North Korea's missile program, which is, of course, something to be concerned about.
Professor Myers, there was also another report on North Korean leader Kim Jong-un inspecting a major shipbuilding manufacturing facility and also a major munitions factory. Now, what's the motive behind these visits? What's your take on these?
Well, Kim Jong-un is a military-first leader, and visiting military-relevant facilities has always been his most common public activity. So this isn't all that strange. But I think there's another aspect to this. He's been calling recently for the expansion of weapons and munitions production and for more attention to be given to developing the Navy's capabilities. So I think it's only natural that he would want to underscore this rhetoric by visiting that sort of location. There's been a lot of attention devoted to the Navy over the past week or so.
Right, it's nothing new that he's been emphasizing these enhancing the regime's maritime forces. Then how likely is it that there'll be actual joint drills between North Korea and Russia? Because there are speculations on this.
Yeah, well, South Korean intelligence assumes that the Russians have already proposed joint military drills to Kim Jong-un. And this may well be why the Russian defense minister visited Pyongyang last July. Now, whether North Korea is interested is another matter. Some experts say that it's too secretive, it always wants to go its own way. But I disagree. North Korea has always liked to play China and Russia off against each other for maximum benefit. And I think it would like to show Beijing and Washington as well that it is no longer dependent for aid and protection on only one foreign country. I think North Korea wants to be incorporated as an equal partner into this sort of budding cooperation with China and Russia. And it's hard to do that without upgrading North Korea's Navy. Also, when you combine a strong missile capability with a strong Navy, you become much more formidable to your adversary. So I think that's another reason why North Korea probably is interested in working together with the Russians in the maritime area.
Sure, there was the North's second attempt to launch its first military reconnaissance satellite, short-range ballistic missile launches last week, and also cruise missiles over the weekend. Professor Myers, will there be more military provocations from the North in the coming days? I mean, the 75th founding anniversary of the North is coming this weekend.
Yeah, that's a big day, sure. Now, I think we could well see more military activity from the North Koreans between now and the 9th of September. But I would caution against regarding it either purely as a provocation or as, mere fireworks connected to an anniversary. As I said earlier, the North Koreans are following a very long-term technological timetable. They're playing a very long game indeed, and I think we need to acknowledge that.
Definitely. Professor Myers, thank you so much for joining us this morning. You have a good day.
You too. Thank you.
Fierce winds and heavy rain slammed southern China and Hong Kong over the weekend as a super typhoon Saola made landfall in Guangdong province, the strongest storm to hit the region in more than 7 decades. And China is now bracing for another typhoon. Lee Kyung-eun has the latest.
Strong enough to slam a woman onto the ground, Super Typhoon Saola made landfall in South China's Guangdong province on Saturday. Packing winds of 125 miles per hour, the strongest since 1949, the typhoon prompted China's most severe red alert. Nearly 800,000 people were evacuated, 13 cities delayed the start of the school term following the summer break, tens of thousands of fishing boats returned to port, and Taishan nuclear power plant halted outdoor operations. Fallen trees, damaged cars, and flooded roads were seen in Hong Kong, where hundreds of flights have been cancelled.
This typhoon seems to be not as strong as a typhoon number 10 before. I was safe at home, but I heard from some friends that their windows got damaged, exhaust fans blew away, or there were leaks and they had to wipe away the water.
I live near the sea, so this time I felt the strong winds. The whole apartment felt like it was shaking.
Saola later weakened to a tropical storm. Trains, flights, and ferries resumed operations as Guangdong downgraded its emergency response for typhoon from the highest level 1 to level 3.
We will stay vigilant in typhoon defense work and strengthen inspections of medium and small rivers, geological hazards in urban areas prone to waterlogging to prevent secondary disasters.
While the exact scale of damage is yet to be announced, another typhoon, Haikui, is heading towards China's province of Fujian after passing through Taiwan. Yoon, Arirang News.
And things are looking not too different in Nevada desert. Tens of thousands of attendees at the Burning Man festival are stuck there after heavy rain inundated the area. Lee Seung-jae has more.
The remote site of the annual Burning Man Festival in northwest Nevada in the U.S. was slammed with 2 to 3 months worth of rain in just 24 hours between Friday and Saturday morning. The heavy rain led to road closures that left around 70,000 attendees stuck in the Nevada desert as the dry desert ground turned into clay-like mud, making it too difficult to walk through. Authorities told attendees on Saturday to seek shelter in the Black Rock Desert and conserve food, water, and fuel as more rainy weather was expected in the area. While a few have managed to leave the area by walking, many RVs and cars became bogged down in mud. Authorities have not provided information on when the roads could reopen, but better weather is expected from Monday. Currently, no driving is allowed in or out of Black Rock City, a full-fledged, thriving temporary metropolis where the Burning Man Festival is held. Meanwhile, the local sheriff's office said it's investigating a death that occurred during the rain event after a body was discovered on Saturday local time. The authorities did not publicly reveal the name of the person or provide details on the circumstances of the death. They added that the individual was found unconscious and that life-saving procedures to revive them were not successful. Each year, tens of thousands of people travel to the remote area in northwest Nevada to take part in the Burning Man Festival to make art, dance, and enjoy a community spirit. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
These layers of lights are auroras replicated to light up and enjoy on a cool autumn night. How about a night stroll at the DDP in Central Seoul? Our Chuseok takes us there.
The autumn evening sky in Seoul is filled with the layers of lights. The Seoul Light DDP 2023 Autumn Festival kicked off on Thursday night at Dongdaemun Design Plaza and will run until September 10th. The event has been held since 2019, but only during the winter, and this year is the first time it will be held both in autumn and winter.
The main theme of this year's event is digital nature, brought to life through human technology in urban spaces.
The highlights of this event are the works of the world-renowned digital art master Miguel Chevalier, as well as the artist and environmental activist Dan Asher. Chevalier is seen as a pioneer of digital art, seeking the harmonious coexistence between nature and artificial elements by using the architecture, history, and seasons of specific locations. At this year's event, he used AI to bring his artwork to the wall of Design Plaza.
I have visited Korea many times and have vividly experienced its different seasons, the sensations of the wind and colors, and these elements became a major source of inspiration for me.
Awaiting visitors on the DDP Grass Hill is another remarkable work of art. Swiss-born artist and activist Dan Asher has used layers of lights to replicate the natural phenomenon of auroras. Having showcased it in 38 countries, including Paris and London, he shared mesmerizing urban auroras and expressed how he felt honored to perform in Seoul.
The idea is to recreate this natural phenomenon, but also potentially the feeling that people can have when they see the real northern lights, this feeling of awe, this expansion that appears.
Both artists said sharing their artwork in public and open spaces is the key to enjoyment, breaking free from standardized spaces like art galleries.
I think it's an amazing show. I haven't seen anything like this before. I think it's picturesque, and I'm fond of this building.
That I cannot stop looking at it, and at the same time I'm continuously taking photographs with my mobile phone because every angle that I look at it is so different.
These public artworks can be enjoyed daily and free of charge from 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. at Dongdaemun Design Plaza. Chuseok, Arirang News.
Good morning, I'm Matthew Ashley, and we now turn over to stories from around the world. We begin in Ukraine, where President Volodymyr Zelenskyy has said he plans to replace Defense Minister Oleksiy Reznikov. Now, the announcement came on Sunday during Zelenskyy's nightly video address to the country. The Ukrainian leader noted that Reznikov has been through 550 days of war since Russia invaded, and that now is the time for new approaches. Reznikov was appointed defense minister in November 2021 and has helped secure billions of dollars of Western military aid. But his ministry has been hit by graft allegations, following reports of a purchase from Turkey of winter uniforms at inflated prices. Now, Reznikov has refuted the allegations, calling them smears. Zelenskyy plans to replace Reznikov with Rustem Umerov, the head of Ukraine's main privatization fund. Now, the move comes amid efforts to root out corruption in the country's military. Those efforts include Zelenskyy last month firing officials in charge of military conscription. Moving on to India, where the country successfully launched a rocket to begin the country's first solar mission. Blasting off from the Satish Dhawan Space Center on Saturday, a satellite called Aditya L1 was successfully put into orbit. Now, the spacecraft aims to study solar winds capable of causing disturbances on Earth, such as auroras. It will travel approximately 1% of the distance between the Sun and the Earth on its 4-month, 1.5 million kilometer journey. Aditya is the Hindu name for the god of the sun, while L1 refers to a spot between the Sun and Earth where the satellite will eventually stop. Last week, India successfully landed a spacecraft near the moon's south pole. Now, Pope Francis has conducted his first Mass in Mongolia. The Pope delivered a sermon in Ulaanbaatar on Sunday to over 1,400 Mongolian Catholics. That's almost all the Catholics in the country. Mongolia has one of the newest Catholic communities. According to the Vatican, it only had 14 devotees back in 1995. The main religion in the country is Buddhism. The Mass was also attended by devotees from regional neighbors, including Chinese Catholics, whom the Pope greeted, saying they should be good Christians and good citizens. And finally, archaeologists in the Peruvian region of Cajamarca have discovered a pre-Hispanic worship site. According to local and Japanese researchers on Saturday, they discovered 2 burial chambers, human remains, and ceramic offerings that date back some 800 to 1,000 years. They also found 2 musical ceramic wind instruments and mollusk shells. Now, the archaeologists said the remains come from the Wari culture before they were conquered by the Inca Empire.
Good morning. There's a chance of rain today, so have a small umbrella handy on your way out. Heavy rain could pound down west of central regions through the first half of the day. Then central regions could see 5 to 40 millimeters of showers today. Meanwhile, east of Gangwon-do province and west of Jeju Island could see 5 to 40 millimeters of rain through tonight. Then there could be a passing rain of 5 to 40 millimeters in inland areas in the latter half of the day, along with thunderstorms. Afternoon highs will be a few notches higher than what we would usually have around this time of year. Highs will hover around 30 degrees Celsius for most of Korea. Then, except in the west of Jeju Island, the resort island will see much awaited sunny skies with very high UV rays, with an expected high of 31 degrees Celsius this afternoon. East of Gangwon-do and the East Coast to see rain through the middle of this week, but elsewhere can expect much brighter conditions with afternoon warmth this week. That's Korea for you, and here's a look at the international weather conditions.
We thank you for watching New Day at Arirang. Have a lovely start to the week.